This is the very first panel of the weekend, and I'm just going to bring them out right now. We have 3 guests for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Attack on Titan!
We did it! We did it! We're doing it! We're almost there!
Hi, everybody.
Hello!
Good afternoon.
Oh, there's a baby!
The youngest Attack on Titan fan.
Ever.
You're about to learn today. You're in the right place. Do you guys want to introduce yourself to get started?
Absolutely.
Sure. My name is Chris Wehkamp. I'm a voice actor from Dallas, Texas, and I am in Attack on Titan a little bit, but I'm so happy to be here with you guys in Knoxville. Thanks for having us out.
Hello, my name is Trina Nishimura. I am also a voice actor. I play Mikasa Ackermann in Attack on Titan, among other things, and I'm so happy to be here.
And everything that they said is true of me, except I'm Jason Douglas and I play Miche in Attack on Titan.
So I guess just to kind of get started, out of curiosity, did you guys grow up watching anime? What were some of your fandoms, and how did you get involved with this incredible, incredible world of anime?
That's a great question. I guess I'll go first. I'm right next to you, so I guess I'll go first. I definitely grew up watching cartoons, and I did not know there was any difference between cartoons and anime when I was a kid. But I definitely loved the original Voltron and Robotech, and I just thought they were awesome and just great cartoons. And then I guess it was really like college when Toonami sort of came around. My buddies and I used to deliver pizza, so we'd be up late, working. And Midnight Run would come on. We would watch Cowboy Bebop, Inuyasha, a lot of the classic kind of Toonami stuff. And again, wasn't super sure what it was necessarily, but when I finally got a chance to do an audition for Funimation, by that point I definitely knew what it was all about. And kind of ever since then, I always tell people, like, I try to watch as much of the stuff that I'm in as I can. It's not feasible to watch all of it, but when it comes to like things like My Hero Academia or some of the stuff that I know I'm gonna sit on a panel and people are gonna have specific questions about, I try to watch as much of that as I can. But yeah, when I was little Chris Wehkamp just thought it was all cartoons. So yeah.
And Chris, out of curiosity, since you did mention My Hero, what would your quirk be if you could choose any quirk?
In real life, like a real life quirk?
Yes.
Probably, I don't like airports and I don't like air travel, so probably just teleporting. It's sort of boring, but like it's the truth. Like I would love to never go to an airport again. That'd be great.
Right, Trina?
So I started, my older brother introduced me to anime when I was a kid, but they were just cartoons because we're Asian. So it was like, this is just what we watch. But yeah, I didn't watch anime when I was a kid because I was sassy and my brother liked it, so I had to hate it. And then I went to college, and a friend a boy, it was a boy. He was like, oh, have you seen Cowboy Bebop? I was like, of course I have, I've seen all of it. I love it so much. And then I went to this old place where you could gain records, old records and archives. They hold archives, it's called Blockbuster. That joke would have landed way harder if I remembered that word. Anyways, so I rented all of Cowboy Bebop and binged it all and on VHS. And then we dated for a while. He was in a band, he was great. We're still friends. Anyways, so that's how I got involved, or that's how I started watching anime. And then I was an actor my whole life. I started acting when I was 9 years old with my local community theater, and then I started touring professionally when I was 13, which is illegal now. Don't let people tell you it differently. Then I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to college. I was going to be a grown-up. And a friend of mine told me about an audition at Funimation. I was like, no, Jimmy, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to be a grown-up. And he was like, it pays. And I was like, when is it? And I auditioned, and about 20 years later, here I am. Oh, you look awesome.
Wow, that was great. I love that. It was like your story of your life in 90 seconds. That was really cool. I'll try to do that. No, my fandoms as a kid were, I was really into Star Trek, the original series. That's all there was. And so I was a huge fan of that. And then of course, like I was into the Lord of the Rings and dabbled in D&D, but of course when you're that, you're as a kid you're just like overwhelmed by the character books, and you're just like figuring it, like you're doing more planning and like rolling the dice and creating characters than you're actually sitting around, actually playing the game. So yeah, that was me as a kid, and like Chris, the only thing we had with anime, that's not a word that I knew. Like you had Voltron, you had reruns of Speed Racer that were on. Finally, I think in college, it was college when, like in our dorm room, somebody put on a video cassette of Akira, and that was mind blowing, which is something which you figure, like a lot of us like me I was into sci-fi, so I was used to like mind blowing concepts, but to see that in the way that anime enables you to kind of like really explore something graphically that you could just never do on film or in live action. And I think we just sat there just like glued, what is going on here? This is like grotesque. I can't believe they allow this on a cartoon. Well, it's not a cartoon, it's an anime. And in fact, back then they used to call it Japanime. Yeah, remember that? Yeah. So, but I was doing theater in Houston in the mid-late 90s, and there was this fledgling little mom and pop company in our town called AD Vision, and some friends of mine were doing some work there, and they're like, yeah, you should come out to this audition for this thing. And of course, I was like moving furniture and waiting tables for a living at the time. And so I showed up, and Matt Greenfield, who was kind of the main guy over there, he had seen me in a play, so he kind of knew my work, and he was directing an OVA called Kimaguri Orange Road, Summer's Beginning, which was one of a 3-part thing. We only did the 1 part, but it was based on a well-known and well-loved manga that had been turned into an anime series, apparently. And that was my first shot, and he cast me as the lead, and it was he spent like 17 hours, recording this movie, and it's a really sweet little film, and I to this day I like it. But that's how I got my start doing anime, and I still didn't even think of myself as a voice actor at that time. I just thought of myself as an actor, and this was just a side gig. I mean, I had no clue that I don't want to say the genre, but like anime would become a thing, right? It was very, very niche, and in fact, the reason Matt started that company with John Ledford was because they were fans, and at that time you would have to, you would spend like $100 to get like a laser disc from Japan that had like 2 or maybe 3 episodes or something on it. So when you talk about commitment, that was commitment. But they saw an opportunity and they took advantage of it, and they decided they had the resources to start something. And AD Vision became ADV Films, and most of you now know it, if you know it, as Sentai Filmworks. So, yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Love it. Love it. So obviously we were talking about how amazing everyone looks, and I'm always so blown away by these cosplays and how creative people are. So if y'all were to attend a convention, not as a guest, but as a fan, who would you guys cosplay as?
So I think it'd be too much fun for me to not cosplay as Aizawa. I think I would have to do that, especially because, I've now traveled around quite a bit. I started kind of doing shows like this, I would say, 2018. So it's been about 4 years that I've been doing appearances like this. And boy, you really get to see quite a spectrum of quality and effort that goes into these cosplays. Sometimes, it's, and Aizawa is a great example because for instance, I was in Montreal, I saw a cosplay of Aizawa where his hair was actually up. They had some sort of technology or structure, I don't know what it was, I'm not crafty in this way. The hair is up. The scarf was floating. Somehow they had it mounted to an attachment. The scarf was floating in the air, and then bright red eyes. So at all times, Aizawa in his full quirk mode. Conversely, I have seen so many Aizawa cosplays where it's a guy in black sweatpants, and he's just like, I'm cosplaying as Aizawa. That's all you need. That's it. You're there.
Comfortable.
So that would be me, I think. I would be the guy in black sweatpants. Yeah.
I think if I was going to cosplay as anybody, I'd want to cosplay as. Have you guys seen the blow-up Pikachus.
Yeah.
Like I would want to cosplay as the blow-up Pikachu because, like, one, it's air conditioned around the clock, and I'm very warm. And two, like nobody can actually touch you, right? Like you're taking all the pictures, you're doing all the things, but you don't have to use as much hand sanitizer. So I would go as either Pikachu or T-Rex. Yeah.
For me, I think it would be fun to do a cosplay, not necessarily solo, but with a group.
Yeah.
So pick a group that would be fun. So like for me, like Egon from the Ghostbusters, or one of the the Enterprise crew or something. If I was going to pick a character that I would probably that I would do that would be that make the most sense that I've done, well, it would be either probably Krieg, although I need to be a little bulkier for that, I think, or Gildarts, because I think it's the closest. It would be easy to just be my natural self and be Gildarts at the same time.
Well, who are you in The Walking Dead?
Tobin.
So couldn't you just go as you?
Yeah, I mean, I would just throw a flannel shirt on and that would be it, pretty much. It wouldn't be hard.
Another comfortable outfit.
Right.
Okay, so what do you personally think sets Attack on Titan apart from other shows? Because clearly it's become this global phenomenon. It's one of the biggest animes of all time. So what do you guys think sets it apart?
I'm going to soapbox here for a minute. My general theory about panels is joke, 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 part joke, meaningful content, part joke. So if you wouldn't mind, please open your ears. This is the meaningful part. So a big part of what I love about Attack on Titan, and specifically about having the privilege of voicing Mikasa, is that when I started doing anime, and like 20 years ago, the female and male characters were very clear, and it was a pretty fine line. If you were a female lead character, you were endowed, huge, right? And frequently you didn't have a lot of clothes, and you weren't allowed to be the best fighter, and you weren't allowed to be the smart person, and there were very certain things that you had to be as a woman. And what I love about Mikasa, and specifically about Attack on Titan, is that Mikasa is the strongest fighter, and she's a female, and she's fully clothed the whole time, and she's not just chasing a boy, she is dedicated to a familial unit. She does develop feelings after a while, but she's human, it's fine. But her motivations aren't just like, I need a boyfriend. And I think that that's really interesting, and I think it shows a really interesting shift, and even conversely, right? In media across the board, men aren't men unless they have an 8-pack, unless they're super cut, unless they don't have feelings, and like bury everything, and a lot of other boring stereotypes that I think are applied to people far too often. But in Attack on Titan, Armin, for example, cries. I mean, he cries a lot, but he cries, right? And he's not a good fighter. He's the most skilled strategist, which is typically a role saved for females. And even further, there's a character in Attack on Titan that is assigned no gender at all. And I think that that shows a really interesting shift that started 10 years ago when the show started, and that they, it's really interesting and really important to me that those sorts of things are challenged, those sorts of archetypes are challenged, and which isn't to say that you can't be a girly girl and wear a dress and whatever you want to do, live your life. But it would have meant a lot to me when I was a little girl to see women portrayed in a different way, and I am honored to be part of that. Meaningful content over, we'll get back to the fart jokes.
Fart.
I think you do make a good point that the show is revolutionary in that sense that it's like men and women are equal, which is, it's...
Isn't it crazy that that's the revolutionary idea? Like, we're equal, unless you ask the Supreme Court. What were you gonna say? Yeah.
Well, it's hard to add to what Trina said because it was so profound that everything I say is going to be fairly. No. But none of that was good. It was that was fantastic. But I think to add to that, why are people really attracted to the show? I don't know. For me, there's a couple of things. One is just the imagination that went behind the creation of the Titans. I mean, the grotesque nature of what they are, and there's kind of a body horror element to that is that you see in like a Cronenberg film or whatnot. And then there's also that sort of post-apocalyptic idea that I think makes Walking Dead very successful. This idea of like kind of, you know, survival. And I think shows that are about survival right now, the idea that, you know, that we, you know, the only way we're going to survive in this, you know, crazy world that we live in is by kind of banding together, unifying, and like, doing something to help each other out and defend each other. I think that's the idea that I think appeals to a lot of people, and you know, it's just interesting. You know, there was another show called Revolution that was on for a few years, and again, it was that idea of a post-apocalyptic survival show that just seems to be kind of appealing to folks.
I think it's really, I'm just gonna, excuse me while I pull out my degree. I think it's really interesting. It's a really excellent point. Like the 80s, right? AIDS epidemic, this mysterious disease that's transmitted somehow, it's by blood. And then in the 90s, there's like an explosion of vampire, like literature, culture, media, right? And then in the 90s, it's like anthrax, we don't know what's happening. And then late 90s, it's like zombies. We don't know why they got sick or how it happened, but here they are. And then, you know, 9/11, and it's like, oh God, what are we doing? How is this happening? Like, why don't we have any power? And then a massive movement of like superhero movies, right? And now I'm not sure what started that sort of post-apocalyptic thing, but I've been thinking about it incessantly.
Yeah, I mean, I have a game. I love tabletop gaming. We have one called Pandemic. Some of you probably played it, and like it plays with that exact same idea. And you can sit there and play Pandemic, and you're like, "Is this about COVID?" And it's like, actually, it could be about the swine flu, or it could be about any number of things. But it's just the idea of we have to fight back at something that poses an existential threat to, you know, humanity, and we kind of love stuff like that. There's a general kind of sense of, I think, decay that we are all fighting against, and we all sense it, and we all point fingers at what we think is happening, but none of us are really sure. But it certainly seems like things are falling apart, and so I think there's a certain appeal in entertainment that kind of says, "Yeah, it's happening, and here's kind of like an idea of how we might solve that problem." Maybe, you know.
I'm going to go totally surface level after that, because you guys both really hit a lot of the meaningful aspects of, I think, the appeal. I'll never forget watching the first, I'm not in the first season, but I'll never forget watching the first season, and the scenes of the gear that they used to swing around and stuff. I had a dream. I had a you ever had a flying dream? They're some of the best dreams, right? Unless you crash at the end. But I had a dream after watching one of those episodes where I had on the gear and I was like swinging through the city or something, and it was such a cool feeling, and I still remember that. And I just think the way it's animated, the cool feeling of getting to watch that and swinging through the cities and attacking the Titans, I think is just so fun and so viscerally fun. Like from an action movie sort of perspective, I think I haven't seen anything better in anime when it comes to that. Yeah.
Were there Titans in your dream, or was just you
No
swinging?
Titans, just swinging.
Just
yeah,
swinging.
just swinging. And I didn't crash. There was no ending. So I just sort of woke up, and then I laid there and I'm like, how can I get back into that dream? That was so much fun. How do I swing through the cities like that? That was amazing.
Well, I hope you have another dream like that
Someday.
tonight.
Maybe tonight,
I mean,
yeah.
it's gonna happen.
Let's hope.
Everybody, collectively, we're gonna be swinging. Okay, so before we get to questions from them, I know there's a lot of highs and lows in the show. What would you say, you can maybe pick between one of the two, the most difficult scene to perform, or maybe the most exciting scene to perform?
Mine's super quick, so I'll do mine first. I play a character named Phil. He is one of Captain Hannes's lieutenants, and of course, you know, no spoilers, but I think everybody knows what happens to Captain Hannes. Phil, as far as I know, is still alive, or he died off screen, one or the other. I don't know. It's, you know, to survive in any capacity in this show is actually quite an accomplishment, so I'm proud of Phil. But at some point, he runs on screen and informs the rest of the leadership that there is a massive group of Titans heading towards the city. And it was a very quintessential sort of Titan moment for me, getting a chance to go in and do it, because my understanding of the show is it's sort of these moments of deep character building punctuated by the most awful disasters you've ever seen in your life. And so of the two, as an actor, perhaps I would choose the character building part, but I didn't necessarily get to do that. Instead, I got to do the disaster part. So I was really, really hyped about getting a chance to do that. Super fun.
I think my favorite scene recording in Attack on Titan, without giving away too much, there's a rooftop scene. Well, there's a couple rooftop scenes. But there's well, she has a lot of moments on rooftops. But there was a moment, there was a rooftop scene recently where a decision was made, and that was a very hard scene to record, but also incredibly gratifying. It was just an hour of me sobbing in the padded room. It was good. It was good. I liked it at the end.
Yeah, mine was, this would be kind of a spoiler, but I assume you guys have watched. But my final episode, Miche's final appearance, he tangles with a Titan, and it doesn't go well for him. And it was excruciating because he's in excruciating pain. He's getting torn apart. And what's funny about it is I don't think when I started recording the episode, they didn't tell me that he met his fate by the end of it. It was a great episode for the character in all respects. Much like, well, we'll go into that. But the point is, yeah, that was a fun one for me, and also the toughest.
All right, so if y'all have any questions, we'll just ask you to project so they can hear you up here, since we don't have a microphone down there. Anyone? All right, in the back. Do you mind standing up?
Yeah, sure.
What's your question?
I'm wondering if you become a voice actor. You probably get this question so fucking much, but how would you suggest starting?
Acting. It's all about acting.
Yes.
Yeah. Act in whatever capacity you can, whether that's community theater or even if you're just on YouTube and you're doing characters. All acting counts. It all counts as experience. Try to get on stage. Musical theater, also a huge plus. Vocal control, a big part of what we do. So that's where you start.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other insight, or we all? Okay, fabulous. All right, who's next? Go ahead.
Earlier you mentioned something about tabletop role playing. For D&D, what's your guys' favorite class and character?
5e?
Any.
Okay. These days, I'm a big fan. I feel like we've come around on warlocks. Warlocks in the beginning, everybody wanted to be a warlock, and then it became a trope of every edgy person wants to be a warlock, and then it wasn't cool to be a warlock anymore. And now I feel like we're coming around on warlocks, and I feel like we can be educated and we can be happy about warlocks again. So I'm happy because I love being tortured characters that have secrets. That's fun as an actor. I want to have secrets and I want to be tortured. That's fun. So warlocks for me. Yes.
Any other warlocks in the house? Any other? Okay, got one. Okay, perfect.
That says so much about your personal life.
Hey.
It's just like peeling away the onion there.
I am somebody, like, I have kids, and my kids are like, I want to be an actor, and I'm like, you can absolutely be an actor. Like, we can, I'll help you do that. I just want you to understand, it's endless rejection, and you need to be a person who thrives on that. Like, so I'm going to try not to damage you in the way that I was damaged that made me need to be an actor. But if you want to be an actor, we'll figure out how to do that. Yeah.
Anyone else want to?
I've been sort of developing this sort of half-elf ranger type character. So basically Aragorn, I guess, is one way of putting it. Yeah. It's been fun. I find like the warlocks and all the other types of characters interesting. I can't get away from the idea of just like I want to kind of be an everyman that's kind of surrounded by more interesting characters, and just I don't know, for some reason that's an interesting angle for me rather than trying to assume something that is so far outside of myself. So it's kind of the idea of being interesting with all the weaknesses but he's half elf, right? So he's got access to spells and certain things that make it more interesting. So.
Well, the half-elf ethos is such that, and you can play it however you want it, but it's built in to be an outsider.
Right.
Because you're not accepted into the elven community,
right,
but you're also not accepted into the human community. So
right.
you always end up being this. It's a rager, I think it's perfect.
Right. So he's a guy that's, spends time sleeping in the woods and just kind of out on the periphery and, hitting the pubs in town,
What a dream.
What's that?
What a dream.
Yeah. I've never played D&D, but I've always aspired to. But I also have issues with rules, like I hate.
Well, that's why you would love D&D, because it's like, it's almost kind of like open. And if you have a great dungeon master, they kind of like tell the story of the game, and it's very, it's like an improv, really. It's like you're improvising. It's like, can I do this? And the dungeon master will be like, let me see, roll a d10, and I'll tell you if you can do that or not. You know, so there's a little bit of that. Yeah.
Are you a dungeon master?
No.
Are you a dungeon master?
Trina.
I'm sorry.
go.
No, I'm excited. I would totally do that. Can we do that tonight? How many people?
Let's do it tonight. We're gonna do it right now. Are you guys gonna stay here for the next couple hours? Just stay here. Oh, perfect. Yeah.
How many dice do we?
I'm gonna have to eat lunch, I think, before we do
But
this.
can we do
We'll do
that?
it. Yeah, let's do it.
How many people do you need?
Yeah.
And you can do it with two. I mean, but the more the merrier.
Oh, this gentleman is up showing off his dice over there. Perfect. Look, the next two panels canceled. We're good. Like, I'm serious.
I found that fascinating. I want to play that.
It's so much fun. And when it's done right, it's so much fun. There are people who can kind of ruin it, but I think if you play with open-minded people, and it should, at its best, I think it should be like collaborative storytelling. You know?
Are the archetypes like already written, like the half ranger person?
Yeah,
Half elf ranger?
It was a game that was developed, I think, in the late 60s. Correct me if I'm wrong. Say again? Was it late 70s? See, I feel like they had. Right. I mean, it was around when I was a kid, and but you know, the developer was a big Lord of the Rings fan, so he was basically creating a kind of a, you know, DIY version game of like the books, and so that's why all the characters track parallel very closely. Welcome to the D&D panel, by the way.
Yeah.
for new players.
That's neat.
But they track very closely to characters in Tolkien's work.
Just out of curiosity and a show of hands, does it take 2 hours to play a game?
You can do a one shot in like 4 hours, something like that, 3-4
4
hours.
hours?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Just out of curiosity, in a show of hands, who would want to play D&D with us?
Wow.
Wow. Like, how many is the most people you have?
I've seen games with 11, 12 people, but that's pretty involved business. And it's mostly combat based, because once you get to 11, once you get that big, it's hard to tell like a cohesive story and have everybody have a distinct character. I would say 4 or 5 people in my experience is really the sweet spot. You know?
But Mercer's group is bigger.
Well, and they've been doing it, they're like best friends, they all know each other. So I think if you have that sort of aesthetic and you have that group, then you can absolutely pull it off. But
Guys, do you want to be best friends or what?
And
I thought we already were.
Well, Trina, I'm excited to see which character you create. That's going to be very exciting.
Where do you get the archetypes? Is it like cards? Do you get like cards and you book?
it's books, yeah.
So if I was a magician,
Yeah, wizard.
wizard? if I was a wizard, like, do I have these strengths and these weaknesses?
Yep, and you roll for stats, and then there's certain things that your class as a wizard will give you, access to like spells and things like that, and then you choose a race on top of that too. So then your race gives you lots of different pros and cons as well.
Well, everybody already knew that, right? Too soon. It's not,
All right, well, we have like time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Go ahead.
I guess, I don't know, I study psychology, so I'm really interested in the psychological aspect of cosplay. And clearly they all go through a lot of trauma. And it's really things who do you think has it the worst? Who has the most trauma?
I think that's an excellent question. I think that's another reason that people are so drawn to Titan, just to circle back on. So while we don't have to worry about a giant genitalless monster ripping the roof off and being like, hey, popcorn, right? Everybody has a Titan, right? Everybody has a Titan in their life, and whether that Titan is a bully, or an eating disorder, or an illness, or food insecurity, or any number of things, right? Watching shows where people come together and agree to fight against their own titans, I think inspires people. But everybody across the board had a real poopy time of it, right? Like Mikasa's parents were murdered in front of her and then she was trafficked. That's not a great way to grow up. And you know, Aaron. I feel like Aaron though. Probably Aaron. He's got a lot of unresolved issues and rage issues. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Aaron.
I'm gonna agree with that, but I think it's a difficult competition because this show, perhaps more than any other, is just extremely trauma based. Like the show's setting is, you know, just on the front lines of this completely unimaginable war, and so it's just telling the story of war in ways that we can't even imagine in our wildest dreams, you know. And so that's probably hard to choose, but I think Aaron being the protagonist means that we get to see the most of his trauma, so maybe just based on that.
Agree?
Good answers. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. All right, we have time maybe for one more question. Okay, we have 2 hands, so let's do 2 questions. We'll go to you, and then we'll go to you next.
All right. So, who is your favorite character in Attack on Titan besides yourself?
My favorite character in Attack on Titan besides Mikasa is Sasha. Because she loves potatoes, I love potatoes, I'm always hungry, she's always hungry. I'm always thinking about food, I'm really just hungry right now. But yeah, Sasha, for sure.
I'm really drawn to Erwin. I love his portrayal of somebody who's clearly out. I mean, everyone's out of their depth in this show, right? But he's the guy that everybody's looking to at the end of the day to know the right decision. And I love J. Michael Tatum's portrayal of this character, and I love the arc of his character. So Erwin, probably.
My exposure to the show is a little bit lacking compared to these guys, and it's obviously my character's no longer in the show, so I don't really have a good answer for you. So, thanks.
Okay, all right. Our final question.
My question is for Chris. You said that you had a dream about flying. Have you ever went ziplining?
Yes, in Costa Rica of all places, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. Because you mentioned airplanes and you didn't like airports and whatnot, which I figured it wasn't so much about the fear of heights and flying, but maybe more about traffic and
Yeah.
delays.
I think the airport, when I was a kid, I remember thinking that the airport was this luxurious place where it was like cool to go to and like it felt really fun and like, it's not that way anymore. Part of it's probably I've just grown up and maybe the romanticization of seeing it through the eyes of a kid compared to seeing it as an adult. But one more thing I want to say about flying, interesting that you brought up ziplining. I was just talking about ziplining not long ago. Somebody's like, I'm really scared of it. And I'm like, here was my experience with ziplining. I was super excited about it and I felt a lot of buildup and anticipation. And it was extremely adrenaline filled, actually jumping off and like that first moment of going down. And then the next like 12 minutes or so, as I'm going down this really long zip line, was just me on a zip line going like, huh. And just kind of looking around at the scenery and being like, right, well this is not much. There's not much to this. This is just me floating. It's really just that moment of jumping off, right? That's the exciting part. That's the thrilling part, I think, of the whole zip lining thing. Welcome to D&D zip lining.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and I was gonna piggyback off your airplane thing. People used to get dressed up and wear suits and like cute hats and
it was a
like.
luxurious thing. It was like, and as a kid, you know, my parents were not like super wealthy or anything. We were pretty middle class, and so getting on a plane and getting to do that was like this big treat. And it was like, and now it's just brutal. It's just every step is pain, and it's, but I thrive on that, so it's perfect.
Well, before we do wrap this up, do y'all have any final thoughts you want to leave us with here this afternoon?
Please come see us. All three of us are right next to each other in sort of the autograph area, although there's so many guests here this weekend, where even is the autograph? The whole thing is an autograph area. It's sort of hard to say. We're sort of towards the middle. There's a big pillar, like a big column sort of in front of that we're all staring at. And we're gonna be here all weekend, so please, you know, come chat with us, come hang out. We would love to see you guys.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for coming out to say hello. It really means a lot to us, a lot. And this is a beautiful city and you're all beautiful people, and I'm gonna learn to play D&D tonight.
Mic drop. Yeah, thanks for being here. You guys are awesome. You know, we couldn't do what we do if you guys weren't, you know, supporting in some way by watching, streaming, and coming out to these shows. So thank you very much. And Come see us.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
One more time, everybody. The Attack on Titan GLT Airplane Ziplining Extravaganza.
Hi, this is Bonnie Gordon, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Make sure to like and subscribe before the self-destructs in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just kidding. Have fun and follow your fandom.